Unrivaled is going nationwide.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. Joined alongside me is our analyst, Sophia Jones. I'm the sideline reporter, Kalia Butler. And let's get into what we are going to yap about here today in the world of women's basketball. We're going to give you some updates when it comes to the WNBA CBA. We know that they are in this status quo period, but there's been some interesting response or lack thereof when it comes to the league. We'll jump into that later. We're going to first get into a weekend recap of Unrivaled, and that is going to start with some teams' trip down to Philly. This was huge and maybe a bigger turnout than anybody even expected. But this was a sold out event. It happened on January 30th, so right before the end of the month. Drew 21,490 fans for the highest ever attendance for a regular season professional women's basketball game and largest for any event at Xfinity Mobile Arena. And here's what really got the crowd going. As we anticipate, a crash out had to come in and show out for her group, and she did. She crashed out in a different way, though. She was going absolutely dumb when it came to shooting. Marina Mabrey set an unrivaled record, which, first of all, let's reflect a little bit. We've already seen multiple records broken already, and we're only a couple weeks in. She had 47 points and scored 10 three-pointers. She was doing this with NBA players on the side, literally having to rethink their own game. Like, this girl is cooking.
And she had that offensive barrage mostly in the very first quarter, too. She was absolutely feeling it. The crowd was feeling it. I don't think you don't hear too many crowd pops close to what Marina Mabrey provided in Philadelphia. But it was such a big event overall, that sold out crowd. And for Xfinity Mobile Arena, that's the same place that the Philadelphia 76ers and the local NHL team play in. So for Unrivaled to go in and establish this precedent and what the environment can be and look like is a real testament to the work that they've done building this league.
You're absolutely right. And it's just so impactful for exactly what they are talking about when we're talking about all this CBA, WNBA, just how present women's basketball is, how present women's sports in general is. When you see a turnout like that and you really take the time to look at everybody that was there, it wasn't just like one demographic. There was a little bit of everybody that you could see show up to that game. And the reason that they did it in Philly was just because of, just the rich basketball history that Philly has. They felt like this was a good stop to start at. I wish they were going on a longer tour because, listen, Chicago has plenty of basketball history. I wanted to be next in line, but hopefully they will gift us with that maybe next season or something. But this is exactly what they're talking about. And when they're looking at, WNBA season, comparing that to what they have going with Unrivaled, they just keep making even better arguments for themselves as to why they deserve to get paid the way that they should. But I think it's just heartwarming to see in general. Like today, I went to my high school, went to go talk to all the high school athletes about being a woman in sports. And not that I didn't have this coming out of high school, but it was different. You know what I mean? Being able to see that growth and passion and having representation for women that look like you, have been through similar things, that are doing outstanding things. It's just so much more than basketball, which is so like corny for me to say, but it truly is.
No, and that's a completely valid take. I couldn't agree more. I mean, they're wearing the shirts saying everyone watches women's basketball because everyone does. And I think it is a reflection that everyone was cheering on Marina Mabrey so much, even though it was against Rose, who has Kalia Copper on that team. She's a Philly native, so when they announced it, it was a little bit centered around her and her story also. So the fact that the crowd was cheering so much for quote unquote the opposition, I think just goes to show how much people just want to see good basketball, and they can respect good basketball in any capacity it is, but especially when it's women on the floor putting out the product that they did. I know when I went to Unrivaled in Miami, I was really surprised by the in-game environment and entertainment that it also created. It's just like a whole party the entire time. And I think that is what really resonated with the Philly crowd, because they showed out. I mean, it's one thing for the players to do their thing on the floor, but it's another thing for the crowd to also be into it. So they met them definitely.
I think between seeing, how Sixers fans operate, how Eagles fans operate, the proximity to New York, I expected nothing less but for Philly to show up. I know what you were saying in terms of it kind of feeling like a party. When they're out in Miami, I know they are having some good off days, but being able to carry that over into another city, I think now we have to think, okay, what is next on this tour? What would more additions look like? I think this was a fantastic idea, truthfully. And really throwing it back to when we were looking at the top like women's sports fan cities, whatever the case may be, they're supposed to be going to you next, technically, Sophia. I was at the bottom of the list when it came to Chicago, whatever. But it's looking like they have to hit the Bay Area when it comes to that laundry list of cities that are really putting out for these women's teams.
Listen, when they want to come out West Coast, Best Coast, just give me a call. I will be there. I 100% think that they can make something move and shake. If they look at the venue that the Valkyries played at, Chase Center, the Warriors play there too, but there's always road trips going along. So I think that Unrivaled has really struck gold with this style of going to different cities and having different stops, quote unquote, because it was just, I think everyone is just so excited to be involved in something that is so special.
And that's why we're a part of it too, right? Being able to witness and be maybe just even slightly part of history that is happening right before our eyes. But when obviously you're going to say the Bay Area is another place that you would want to go to when it comes to their next stop. Obviously, I want Chicago to be one. But when we're thinking of that next place, what's a good area for Unrivaled to take this presentation to?
In thinking, obviously, I'm going to just stay on the theme of West Coast, Best Coast. I think you have to throw LA in there, because also looking at this time of year and it being in the depths of winter pretty much, I can see a tendency to want to go towards warmer climates. So I think of a Los Angeles. That might be preferable. There are a lot of convention center, arena spaces that they could definitely make use of. But if you want to stay in the Northeast, New York, of course, has such incredible basketball history. I think those are some of the main spots. I feel like that's like so just obvious, but
almost too obvious.
Okay, let me think. You know what? I'll go Seattle. I'm just like totally West Coast today, but Seattle is another city I think that could definitely show out with an Unrivaled tour stop there.
Yeah, I think the next one, I mean, it's kind of hard because the proximity was right there. So I'm sure a lot of people probably made the trip from New York anyway. But I just think of how lit the Liberty games look, and just kind of having that combo of being in Philly and then also New York. But yeah, I think that has to be one of the next ones. Maybe even a trip down south, something of the sort. Obviously, they're in Miami right now, but obviously, I'm going to go with the Midwest, the Northeast, I guess, and we'll throw in the West Coast in there too. But really, such an exciting weekend of games, and we're going to chat even more about some other recaps, what happened in Unrivaled this past weekend. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff. The final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. And if you are a cool person, you will be rooting for the Patriots coming up on Sunday. If you're rooting for the Seahawks, That's all right, but not really. But this Super Bowl 60 and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same game parlay, this is a game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, life skills, certifications, and location. We're at a time where, a lot of people are applying for jobs. It's hard to maybe filter out who is going to be the absolute best fit for your business and help you grow and boom in this new year. So Indeed is here to help you. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just want someone who can help. I'd want someone with real experience who can jump right in. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours make 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Another good slate of games. These ones were in Miami. Not every team made the trip to Philly, but we sure know that they were rooting for them from Miami. I saw plenty of videos from other Unrivaled players watching the game and talking crazy about how crazy Marina Mabrey was going. But the Hive went up against the Mist. They won 82-69. This game was on Saturday. Vinyl beat Laces 70-63. Sunday, Breeze beat Rose 81-56. So the Rose kind of having a tough string of games, especially going up against the youth, if you will. And then the Phantom beat the Lunar Owls 59-49 on Sunday. Sophia, of these weekend games, what stood out to you the most?
I think, like you mentioned, Rose, they also lost to the Lunar Owls in one of the Philadelphia games. So it was a bit of a quick turnaround having to fly back. That's about a 3-hour or so trip. But they took 2 losses in a row, and they were looking extremely strong at the beginning of the season. It appeared like they were going to get that repeat in. Chelsea Gray has just been playing out of her mind, but that facade is starting to slip, and I think the Rose are beginning to come back to earth a little bit. But losing 81-56 to the Breeze is a pretty substantial blowout. Also, on top of losing to the Lunar Owls, who are one of the bottom teams in the league, I think things for the Rose need to start picking up a bit, and it's going to start with Chelsea Gray, quite frankly. I mean, she's done so much, but it's also the players around her that may need to start really contributing as well.
To the point of, more of this Breeze and Rose game. Obviously, I'm a sideline reporter, so I love throwing in all the quotes and everything, but I talk about the youth of this team so much, obviously, because they talk about it themselves. But Rickea Jackson, after the game, said, "We are just young and turned." She said that head coach Noelle Quinn said, "Our youthfulness is our power." And I feel like that showed today. Let's just go over like a little bit of a recap. Paige Beckers scored 11 of Breeze's first 13 points of the night, and then was tying Marina Mabrey, Kayla McBride as the second fastest player in Unrivaled history to reach 200 career points. Mind you, she just started this. So she's 9 games deep doing this. That's fueled a 12-0 run, and then the Breeze were up 18-9. But Shakira Austin has been putting out for the Rose too. She had gone on a 10 straight scoring streak, but the Breeze are just looking deeper and deeper the more that they have been able to play with each other. When you have a Dom Malunga, when you have a Rakia Jackson, a Paige Beckers, that literally is the young and turnt group. But Paige recorded her second 30-point game of her career and had 32 and a career high 11 assists. Jackson added 20 points and Malunga posted 18 points and 11 rebounds. So basically, when your top three players are essentially almost averaging double doubles, what do you do in a predicament like that?
And especially in the 3-on-3 format, we mentioned how the youthfulness of this group would probably thrive in that scenario because it's so fast paced. You got to be in shape. You got to be able to run the floor and just go, go, go. And I think that's been one of Breeze's biggest advantages this season. Even looking at, they played that last game without Cameron Brink, but they called up Haley Jones from the developmental pool. And she was just another person that slid right into that young and turnt mentality. And Breeze is just, they've been looking really strong, and they actually surpassed Rose in the standings with that win. They are 5-4 with Rose right under them at 4-5.
Keeping the double doubles going, recapping that Phantom and Lunar Owls game, Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Plum really powered them in that one. They both had double digit scoring and also were able to win by double digits too. Obviously, Lunar Owls having a bit of a tough time, especially without Nafisa Collier. Luckily, Skylar Diggins has made her way back into playing with them, but they fall to 2-7 after losing this one. The Phantom are another team that I feel like is maybe starting to look a little scary. They're 6-3. Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Plum combined for 36 points and 21 rebounds. Plum had 18 points and a career high 10 rebounds. Boston added 18 points and 11 rebounds. This is her fifth double-double of the season already. That is a tandem that I really like to see. Kelsey Plum obviously is a bucket getter, we know. But Aaliyah Boston is also a player that can play cleanup really well when it comes to just being around the rim. She's just another player that has like a soft touch, but also fantastic footwork. She's so athletic that she can, bring it out a little bit too. These 3v3 scenarios are just showing like how good these players truthfully are. And I really have liked the pair of Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Plum together.
Yeah, I think Phantom dropped their first game, but after that, it looked like Kelsey Plum and Aaliyah Boston instantly figured out their tandem and how they were going to play with each other. And it's been looking really, really strong since. You talk about Aaliyah Boston. I think that the Unrivaled League has really helped her in her development because it's allowing her to learn how to create in space more. Not just be back to the basket. You have to make a post move on the block right there. But like you mentioned, she's stepping out more, rim running much better. So I've definitely seen her progression throughout the course of Unrivaled. But a team I want to highlight that I think had a really strong weekend is actually Vinyl. They beat the Laces on the Saturday game and then beat the Hive on Monday. So they went 2-0 in the weekend, but that win over the Laces was really huge because the Laces were starting to look like that group that was creating a little separation from the rest of the pack in domination. But Vinyl just brought them back down to earth a little bit, and that squad is looking pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. To your point, Ray Burrell had a career high 22 points. They handed the Laces their first loss in 21 days, 70-63 defeat. And this was actually Burrell's first time making a start this season. So they had a little bit of a different look when it came to the lineup. She came in place of Courtney Williams. And obviously she's not necessarily part of the young and turnt group, but when you're looking at a player that had a really strong season with the Sparks, and she has fantastic length, like she's just such a good she's a good in-betweener. Like that's how I would describe her, where you can put her truthfully at any position and she can exceed. She has fantastic length. She's tall. She can get it done defensively, but she's gotten much more creative with how she gets some of her buckets too. And so her coming into the starting lineup was a really nice switch in those rotations.
Yeah, I think Burrell has always had the motor to her game to pair along with that athleticism and length, which is just in itself a great combination. But now we're starting to see that refinement to her game develop more, where she's scoring more efficiently. She's looking to get her own shots and knows what spots she wants to get to, just being more decisive overall. And I think that's just another attribute to the Vinyl team. It's already a plus that she's playing with her Sparks teammate, De'Erica Hamby, but just looking at that group in all, they have some really good length and guard play to help lift them in this Unrivaled.
We'll be able to see more of them coming up this next weekend, but WNBA offered no proposal in-person meeting.
Tax season does not have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish without the stress or guesswork. If you're like me, especially if you're a new adult and you don't really know quite what you're doing yet, you might have just figured out the difference between a 1099 and a W-2, like I did, then TurboTax is exactly the path that you want to follow. So for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150. All in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. It's 2026, and if you're still paying rent without Bill, it is time for a change. Bill is a loyalty program for renters that rewards you for your biggest monthly expense, rent. I live in San Francisco, and just Bay Area, California in general is not the cheapest area in the world, so you don't have to tell me about rent and how I can not feel as bad about having to constantly pay it. But with Bill, every rent payment earns you points that you can use towards flights, hotels, Lyft rides, Amazon.com purchases, and so much more. And here's something I'm really excited about. Starting in February, so this month, Bill members can earn points on mortgage payments for your first time. Soon, you'll be able to get rewarded whenever you live and unlock exclusive benefits with more than 45,000 restaurants, fitness studios, pharmacies, and other neighborhood partners. Personally, I'm trying to get back onto my fitness grind, so I would love to use Built for berries and core power. Those are some of my biggest ones I'm kind of looking forward to exploring more. So join the loyalty program for renters at joinbuilt.com/lockedonwomen. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonwomen. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you.
All right, there was an important meeting that happened on Monday between the WNBA and its Players Association. They were able to meet at league offices in New York City, and the meetings lasted roughly 3 hours. But apparently, in those meetings, there was not a counter from the WNBA to the players' proposal that they most recently had. Instead, I guess some of the focuses were allowing players and owners to connect and ask questions of each other, to kind of, I guess, have a deeper understanding of the needs on both sides and maybe where they're truthfully coming from the most recent proposal. It seems like there hasn't been sit down conversations since the last proposal that the players had brought to mind. Some of those key focuses being housing, retirement benefits, and just overall professional standards, including facilities, team staffing requirements, and other high priorities when it comes to that. But the biggest priority, obviously, being that revenue sharing. Sophia, what else can you tell us about this?
Well, Nneka Ogwumike told Front Office Sports that they, being the league, volunteered that they did not have a proposal prepared at the top of the meeting. And that set the tone for the conversation because we were hoping to hear otherwise. This was something that we talked about last week, where the WNBA Players Association had signed their own proposal, and it's been about 6 weeks now that the league has not even responded. The league felt like it was too similar of a proposal to the last one and did not warrant a response. So at the top of the hour, it just sounded like, okay, it just sounds like we need to get some feelings out on the table and let each other know where our head's at, which is what it seemed like this meeting was mainly there to accomplish. Alicia Clark was there as well, and she mentioned that there are so many more conversations that have to happen before a strike can be called. After the meeting today, it's still on the table. Until we get a response from the league about proposals, there's nothing we've been able to negotiate to go back and forth to even warrant, okay, what does a strike look like? So it sounds like the players came out the meeting and their mindset is still, okay, if we need a strike, that is still on the table. The league needs to give us back a proposal or a response to the proposal that we sent, just so we can continue moving things forward, because that's the premises of a negotiation. One side presents and the other side presents, and you kind of keep adding on top of each other until you reach a compromise, but it is at a standstill because the league is not responding to their latest proposal, and they didn't have a proposal of themselves.
Yes, which coming from the players is understandable to have some frustration that they were expressing in terms of there's been some time to sit and think on this, and now you're at the league offices and you're hoping that you can maybe get into more detail than kind of feeling at a place where you need to kind of have like a therapy session in a way between the owners and the league, whatever the case may be. I think when you're just looking at the timeline of things really kind of need to start happening quickly, I'm not positive how much this really shifts the needle forward. We can only hope that by having these conversations and maybe having a little bit more of a heart to heart, and I feel like a lot of things have been kept a little bit more internal than they were at the beginning, and maybe that's just privacy reasons, whatever the case may be, or hopefully they really are seeing both sides of players, seeing the league side, league seeing the player side. But there's a couple players that weren't able to be in attendance at the physical meeting. A lot of them had to be on Zoom because they were playing in Unrivaled, one of those being Kelsey Plum, Nafisa Collier, and Brianna Stewart. There was some travels issues when it comes to them coming from Miami, going up to New York. It's obviously the middle of the winter. There are a lot of other factors that play into that. One of their secretaries, Elizabeth Williams, is playing in Turkey right now. There's a lot of players that are in different places, but it looks like Alicia Clark was able to make it, Brianna Turner and Stephanie Dawson. She's the rep for Washington Mystics, and then everybody else was able to join via Zoom.
Yeah, and I think just having dialogue without a middle person, those middle people being spokespeople, lawyers, I think just having that dialogue without that third party is what's most beneficial and what's going to come out of this. Hopefully just driving the conversation forward to negotiating this CBA.
Yeah, we can only hope that things will get figured out soon here. That will do it for us today on Locked On Women's Basketball. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We will see you